Hi, Margaret. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi, Marcus. Nice to see you.
Yes, so I'm very honored to have some questions for you about the loving adult.
Okay.
Yeah, as you know, I'm in the process of writing an ebook and planning to have some online course. So some yeah, the first question I wrote here is, what is the importance of the loving adult to develop the loving adult in the inner bonding process?
So the loving adult is the part of us that is like an emissary between our higher self, which lets us know what's loving, and our inner child to take loving action. The loving adult is the action part of us. The spirit is in spirit. It's not in a body. So it can't take action. It can tell us what action to take, but the loving adult is the action part of us. The inner child is the feeling part of us. It's in our body, in our feelings. The wounded self is our false beliefs, but the loving adult is what we're about in terms of being able to take loving action on our own behalf. And the loving adult is both mother and father to the inner child. And the left part of the brain is the male aspect that takes action in the world. And the right part of the brain is the feminine aspect that takes action on the inner level, that nurtures ourselves on the inner level. And of course, both men and women have both parts of the brain. And so both people can learn to nurture and learn to take loving action for ourselves in the world. And that action needs to be informed by our higher guidance. If the action is informed by our wounded self, it's not loving action. It's
Yeah,
actions that can be harmful to ourselves and to others. So the loving adult is the part of us that's connected in our heart to our feelings and to our higher self.
yeah. Nice. So thanks a lot. And now this leads actually to the next natural question for me: how we can strengthen, how we can develop the loving adult.
So, in inner bonding, we have two intentions. And there's the intention to protect against pain with various forms of controlling behavior. And that activates our ego wounded self that has all the fears and false beliefs. The intention to learn about loving ourselves, sharing our love with others, is what activates our loving adult. And so the more we practice the 6 steps of inner bonding, the more we develop the new neural pathways in our brain for the loving adult. Most of us had so few role models for being a loving adult. We just don't know what it looks like to be a loving adult. And, we can look around at the media. We don't see people being loving adults. And so we need our higher guidance in order to have the guidance for being the loving adult. And it's practicing the 6 steps of inner bonding that actually develops those neural pathways in our brain for the loving adult. The more we practice being open to learning about loving ourselves and others, the more we develop that adult. It gets stronger and stronger and more accessible to us the
Yeah.
more we practice inner bonding.
Yeah. Yeah, I have also here as I spoke with you, I want also to include some like exercise about mindfulness and also compassion, self-compassion. And
Yeah.
is this also ways to how to say, to strengthen the loving adult and include in the inner bonding process?
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting is that we don't generate love and compassion by
Mhm.
ourselves. love and compassion and empathy and even strength and wisdom, those are aspects of spirit, of our higher self.
Yeah.
And so in order to be a loving adult, we open, like in step 2 of inner bonding, is making the decision to be open to learning and then to invite these beautiful qualities of love and compassion and strength and wisdom and courage and truth into our heart. And that is what creates the loving adult for that moment that we're open to learning and we're inviting in those qualities. And of course, you're right. The more we practice being compassionate towards our own feelings, towards our wounded self, towards others, the more we develop the loving adult. The wounded self is not capable of compassion. The wounded self is judgmental, but the loving adult is never judgmental. The loving adult is very empathic and compassionate. And for some people, it takes time to develop that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, nice, nice. Thank you. Now it comes also up. You spoke about the two different kinds of intention, to like control and to become open for learning, for what's loving for me, and how we can how we can like put the emphasis more on the loving side, also how we can strengthen our intention.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a very good question. What I can share with you is that when I started to practice inner bonding, I was like everybody else. I was very much in my wounded self, wanting to control. I was a caretaker and I would give in order to get approval from people, but it was making me very sick. You can't keep giving and giving without really getting worn out. And so when Spirit brought us inner bonding, when Spirit helped us put it together, Dr. Erica Topich had half of it and I had half of it, and Spirit helped us put it together, I realized this is really, really a very, very powerful process. But how do I get motivated to do this? And so one of the things that I asked my higher guidance is something that I had struggled with is, why am I on the planet? What's the purpose of being here? And the answer was, you came here, like everybody came here, to evolve in our ability to love, to share our gifts with the planet. Well, that made a lot of sense to me, that I came here to evolve my soul in my ability to love. And that's what's been my guiding light. That's what's kept me on this path since inner bonding came in almost 40 years ago. And so it's so important to me to evolve as a loving human being. And that's what keeps me choosing love moment by moment. But in order to do that, I had to be willing. I made two life-changing decisions. One was I was willing to be hurt. Before then, I was trying to protect against getting hurt all the time. I knew if I started taking care of myself, when I had been caretaking everybody, my husband, my kids, my parents, my clients, been caretaking everybody, that there was going to be a lot of people mad at me. And so I had to be willing to be hurt. And I had to be willing to lose other people rather than continue to lose myself, because I was losing myself and that was making me sick. And so I really made those two decisions, that I was willing to be hurt and I was willing to lose others rather than continue to lose me. And that has really strengthened me. It strengthened me at the time to be able to start to learn what it meant to love myself rather than give myself up in order to control others. And you know, it's so wonderful when you really learn to love yourself, when you really learn to see who you are in your soul, when you really learn to get the beauty of that divine spark that's within you, and to really see and value that beauty within you. You stop worrying about what other people think of you. I don't even think of it anymore. It never even occurs to me to think about what other people think of me, because I know who I am and I value who I am. And if they don't like me, you know, at this point, I think that's their loss. They're just not in a place to connect with me.
Yeah.
So it's making love your guiding light. It's making love the most important thing in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. So this like also like clarify your goals, your values, your vision
Yeah.
to evolve in love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. To evolve in love. And that's a lifetime process. It's not
Yeah.
something you just do when you're there. You
Yeah.
know, it's always happening. There's always situations in life that challenge us to really look at, okay, what would be loving in this situation? What would be loving in that situation? I'm
Yeah.
asking my guidance all day long. What's loving to me right now?
Yeah.
What's loving action? What's in my highest good right now? What
Yeah.
would a loving adult do right now?
Yeah.
And so it's a constant asking about in any given situation, what's loving right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I just wrote the introduction, and there's also this like guiding principle. What is loving for me?
Yeah.
Uh, I heard from another source, I don't know, whatever. It's also for me helpful in the sense, what would love do now in this moment?
Yes. What would love do? That's what I'm asking. What would a loving adult do?
Yeah, yeah,
In this,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Um, you spoke before about the loving or the ideal. I don't know if this is English in the like the loving mother, loving father, the nurturing mother, father, and is you have some hints or some words to this, how we can develop the loving father, mother. Like you said, we don't have any role model. So how
Yeah.
we sure we can always ask guidance.
That's the role model. That's been my role model
Yeah.
is higher guidance. I've also looked to other people, like people in movies or
Mhm.
you know, different situations, say, wow, that, you know, that impresses me. That looks like a person who's acting like a loving adult in that moment. And so there are some role models around and we can pick them out. There's not very many. But
Yeah.
my guidance has been the primary role model for me. And so obviously, developing your connection with your higher guidance is very, very important in
Yeah.
inner bond. And it
Yeah.
takes two things to really be able to have that connection. Spirit exists at a higher frequency than we do. Our frequency is lower, so we can see each other. You know, spirit is like a hummingbird's wings, very rapid, and that's why most of us can't see spirit. We can see each other, but we can raise the frequency of our energy
Mhm.
so that we can connect with spirit. And this takes two things. One, it takes a sincere intention to learn
Mhm.
about loving yourself. That is the major thing that raises your frequency, is a deep intention to learn about loving. The second thing is the frequency of your body. Now, this is a challenge for a lot of people because if you're eating sugar and processed foods, junk foods, fast foods, foods contaminated with pesticides and preservatives and colors and all this stuff that so much of our modern food has, this is very hard on the body.
Mhm.
And so it lowers the frequency of the body.
Yeah.
And so if you want to have an easy time connecting with your higher guidance, you not only need to develop your intention to learn, a strong intention to learn, but you need to start taking loving care of your body.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I've been doing this for over 60 years now. I don't put anything in my body that I think could be the slightest bit harmful. I'm very, very careful. And
Okay.
so I was doing that way before I learned inner bonding. And then when I learned inner bonding and I learned about the intention to learn, at that point, it became very easy
Mhm.
because my body was already operating at a higher frequency. And so with the intention to learn, I was then able to access my guidance at will. And now I feel my guidance all day long. I know I'm being watched over. I hear my guidance guiding me all the time in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And, it's just so wonderful to know that we're not alone, that we're not alone, that we are being watched over, and that our higher guidance wants us to be healthy and wants us to be safe. And I've been warned numbers of times of things that could have actually killed me, warned ahead of time, that saved my life. And so I'm very grateful for
Yeah.
my guidance. And I know that anybody can learn to do this if they're really motivated to learn about love and they love themselves enough to eat really well.
Yeah. So nice. Thanks a lot. I just came in my mind as I heard you once in a master class that it can it also be helpful like for the like to develop the loving father or mother, like to write down some like dialogue or qualities or exchange to like to that it becomes a little more manifested or more uh, that you can get more touched with the inner connection.
I think what you're talking about is that it is the job of the loving adult to define who we are in our soul.
Mhm.
This is our soul is our inner child. That's the divine spark within us. And the loving adult, as we develop the loving adult, as we develop our spiritual connection, then we can open to guidance and ask our guidance to show us who we are in
Mhm.
our soul, who we really are.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference in life. This is absolutely essential for us to learn to define our own essential goodness, our kindness, our caring. So many people have learned to define their worth by their performance, how much money they have, the kind of house they have, the
Mhm.
clothes they wear, how they look, how their hair looks, whatever, rather than by who they are,
Mhm.
rather than by their compassion, their empathy, their generosity, their
Yeah.
honesty, their reliability,
Yeah.
their kindness. See, this is when you define yourself by your essence, then you know you're a good person. You don't have to prove it, and you don't need anybody else to tell you that. You
Mhm.
know it, but that you can't know it through your own mind, because
Yeah.
that's self, that's programmed with false beliefs like, oh, you're not good enough, or you'll never be enough, or there's something wrong with you, or things like that. And so we need to be able to see our true self through the eyes of our higher guidance. And that's one of the jobs of the loving adult,
Yeah.
is to go to our higher guidance and say, tell me who I am.
Mhm. Yeah.
Show me who I am. And one of the other jobs of the loving adult, this is what good parents do with kids, is they reflect to the children who they are. Like a loving parent might say, oh, I just love your kindness, or oh, that was so generous. I so appreciate that. Or wow, your creativity just blows me away.
Mhm.
Commenting on the essential qualities. We can do that for ourselves. Few of us had parents who mirrored us, who
Yeah. Yeah.
reflect that way. And so part of the job of the loving adult is to mirror our beautiful soul qualities and to do it out loud. It's
Yeah.
really important for the
Mhm.
inner child to hear this
Mhm.
from the loving adult. And I do this throughout the day. I
Yeah.
do this all the time. Talk out loud, tell my inner child what I love and appreciate about who this soul is that's in my body, and that I so appreciate being the one who can take care of her.
Mhm.
When we make other people responsible for whether or not we're okay, we're rejecting ourselves, we're abandoning ourselves. It's like taking a child and giving the child away to somebody and saying, here, you love this kid, I don't want to love
Yeah.
this kid. And so most people are rejecting and abandoning themselves by making other people responsible for whether or not they're okay. They need other people's approval, other people's attention, other people's validation to feel like they're okay. And that's a deep form of rejection and self-abandonment. And so a loving adult doesn't do that. A loving adult doesn't make other people responsible, but
Yeah.
takes all the responsibility of mirroring who we are and the responsibility of learning from our feelings. That's a major job of the loving adult, is to be connected with our feelings, to be in our body in step one of inner bonding, connected with our feelings and open to learning anytime we feel anything other than peace and fullness inside. The
Yeah.
loving adult then goes in and does the 6 steps of inner bonding.
Yeah, thank you. There's come up. I created an like the false beliefs about the loving adult, some questionnaire, and there the people one point is like I'm afraid when I develop my loving adult that I get like rejected from the teacher or whatever, and many they cross this and said that they are afraid that they lose their friends or family.
Yes, and that can happen. And that's why I said we have to be willing to lose others rather than lose ourselves. It's like somebody, let's say somebody is an alcoholic and all of their friends and family are alcoholics. And then they decide they don't want to be an alcoholic and they get clean. They might not be able to connect with those friends and family anymore. And so in order to really shift our intention into being loving, we have to be willing to have whatever's happen. But lots of times family connections get better, but sometimes they get worse. Sometimes people do lose their friends, but then they make new friends who are not trying to use them or abuse them or who really love and care about them. And that's what's happened with me. I did lose a lot of people in my life when I started loving myself, because I was a really good caretaker. I was Mother Earth for everybody, and everybody loved how I was taking care of them.
Yeah.
They were not happy when I started to take care of myself, but I had to be willing to have that happen. And sometimes that is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's also that you see who are really friends.
That's right. That's right. Those people who are really your friends will support you and be happy that you're loving yourself. And those people that were using you will be mad at you.
Yeah. Makes also. I want also to ask about a big issue, the resistance to becoming a loving adult.
Yeah, there is a lot of resistance, yes, because the wounded self, the wounded self in most of us have been in charge. It's been in charge all our whole lives. We had to develop this part of us as we were growing up, as part of our survival, to try and get love and avoid pain and feel safe. Well, the wounded self gets very addicted to having or trying to have that control, believing that it has control over getting love and avoiding pain and feeling safe. This is a false belief, but the wounded self really believes that it knows how to control that. It knows how to keep you safe. And so when you start a practice like inner bonding to develop your loving adult and your spiritual connection, the wounded self gets scared. Oh my God, we're going to get hurt. And it gets scared that it's going to not exist, which is not true. It's just that the wounded self gets healed. The false beliefs get healed. And that energy that's been going into controlling and avoiding and protecting is now released for being an adult or being creative, all kinds of things. We don't need to be using that energy in ways that don't work for us anymore. But the wounded self can often have a backlash when you're developing your loving adult and really rear its head and say, oh no, you're not gonna, I'm on the throne. I'm in control here. I've kept us alive all these years. I've kept us sane all these years. You're not going to take over. And so the wounded self can rear its head and resist. but we still have our intention.
Yeah.
And it's still our intention that governs what happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we still have the option of just quieting the wounded self. And that's what I needed to do over and over. I needed to say to my wounded self, you just don't know what you're talking about. You're a program, you're ignorant, and you need to be quiet.
Yeah.
And eventually, when my wounded self found out that as a loving adult connected with my guidance, I do a much better job of keeping us safe, then the wounded self got very quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
When the wounded self steps back. Yeah, also about, I have more question about the difference between the wounded self who protects and the loving adult protects also.
Yes.
And what
So,
is the different energy or intention?
yeah, so the wounded self protects by trying to control people and situations and the outcome of things. But the loving adult protects by taking loving action guided by spirit for us. It's a completely different kind of protection. It's not about controlling people or controlling outcomes. It's about being connected with ourselves, being connected with our guidance, and listening truly to what is loving to ourselves and what is in our highest good. So I'll give you an example that happened quite a few years ago, but it was very profound. I was at the time driving home from the airport after having taught on the West Coast, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. And I wasn't driving fast, but because I stay open to my guidance, I heard this loud voice. Usually my guidance is quiet, but I heard this loud voice say, slow down. I mean, it was loud. I thought there was somebody in the backseat of my car. I listened, I slowed down, and just seconds later, this drunk driver careened across the freeway, just inches in front of me, and would have broadsided me if I hadn't have slowed down.
Yeah.
But I was safe because I did not get hit. Now, there is no way that my wounded self could have protected me from that, because there is no way that my wounded self would have known that that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But our guidance, which has a broad perspective of things, knew it was going to happen and probably saved my life at that time.
Yeah.
That car was going very fast. And so things like that, I mean, that was a fairly dramatic example, but things like that, see, it's a completely different way of protecting. I was protected because I was connected with my guidance.
Yeah.
Wounded self just would like to control things, but how can the wounded self control a drunk driver going across the freeway?
Yeah. Yeah.
No way of knowing that,
So
you see.
yeah. Yeah. No possibility. Yeah.
That was one of the situations that really let my wounded self know that it couldn't protect me the way my loving adult with my guidance could protect me.
Yeah. Nice. Uh, out one. It's okay. One last question.
Yeah.
The people ask me also how I'm loving when I'm in stress, like when there's a lot to do, and yeah, when there is quite a lot happening in the moment or in the day.
No, but again, you see, you can always ask your guidance, what's loving to me right now?
Yeah.
What's true right now? What's loving right now? If we sink into the stress, we're going into our wounded self.
Yeah.
And life can be very stressful.
Yeah.
But when we're connected with our guidance, we're managing that stress in a way that's loving to ourselves. We're maybe doing an inner bonding process to explore what maybe we're telling ourselves something that's causing the stress,
Yeah.
or maybe there's things happening externally that's causing the stress. And maybe we need to find out if we need to speak up or take care of ourselves in some way. And so, again, it's about going to guidance about what is loving to us in any given moment, especially when there's stress.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's very, very helpful for me, for my clients, for my book.
Good. You're
And
very,
yeah, so thanks a lot, Margaret.
you're welcome, Marcus. You take care, okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So see you another time. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, good.
And
Okay.
and have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. You have a nice evening. Okay.
Yeah, thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye, Margaret. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.